Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Preparing for Year-End session. It's really great to have a huge turnout today. My name's Darcy. I'm the Training Program Manager, and I'll be the MC today. We know this is a busy time for you, so we have two experts on hand today to take us through financial year-end and payroll year-end. So Leanne Davis will take us through preparing for the year end for your books, and Lielette will take us through everything to do with the payroll year end. Just on questions, there is a question panel in the right-hand column of your GoToWebinar panel there, and there'll also be a recording, checklists and articles sent out as an email after the session. So keep an eye on your email inbox after the session for that information. There'll also be, at the end of the session, we'll talk about our Get Ahead of the Game site, and that link will also be in your email, and that contains stuff from today, but a whole lot more articles to help you with your year-end processes. So let's kick off. First up, we have Leanne Davis, who's going to take us through the financial year-end. Leanne's a BAS agent and owner at Sorted Out Office Assist, and if you've been to our certification webinars, you might have heard her explaining QuickBooks Online already. So over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Darcy. I'm just going to grab my screen over here. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see my screen okay now. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session. So I'm taking you through as Darcy said, end of financial year using QuickBooks Online. So for me, my end of financial year, I like to keep it simple. I've seen lots of different bookkeeping processes and checklists that can be really overcomplicated. So my checklist is simple, and I just like to keep a simple process. Today, I'm not going to take you through any bookkeeping processes as such, but point out in QuickBooks Online where you can save lots of time with the features using QuickBooks Online. So when I first log into my QBOA, I've got my dashboard, and from here I can see, let's go to mute Darcy there. From here I can see on my dashboard, and I can have a look at my client list. I have a look at the columns, the bookkeeping columns, and just see what's going on in the file before I even get in. So I can see here on my status column whether my books have been closed. So closed books in QuickBooks Online is locking at a certain period. So I can see here that my books are closed as at the 30th of June 2017. And on my for review column here, I can also see that I have one change to closed books. So this means that something's been changed to my books after they've been locked, and I might have done a year end. And then I've got two more items here for review. So just clicking onto those as well will take me into my client file where I can have a look at what's going on before logging into the actual file. So this is my bookkeeping tab. In here I have an account watch list. I can see my books are being closed and at what date, and I also have a review, things for review in QuickBooks. So first, the account watch list. This is really handy just to have a look, just to get an overview of your balance sheet items that have a balance, and just have a look before you even log in at things that might stand out as to not looking correct, like a debit balance here of my payroll clearing account. So I kind of know in advance what I'm in for before I get into the file. I can also sort. So if I want to check my accounts that I reconcile, now in QuickBooks Online you can reconcile most of your balance sheet items, not just your bank account. So I can check here as well, the last reconciled date, and make sure these are up to date as well. And again, just know what I'm in for before I get into the file. Over to the right hand side, I've got my review in QuickBooks. So I have my change to closed books, and the other transactions here I've got changes to reconciled. So where my bank accounts have been reconciled, if there's been any changes made to those reconciled accounts, it will point those out here and give me a hyperlink that will take me directly into those accounts, into those transactions as well, to see, I just clicked on the wrong one there, to see what those actual transactions are. I'm just going to go back there. So it'll actually take you into that bank account and into those transactions. So you don't need to go looking for transactions either, a big time saver. So if you did the end of financial year or followed the blog last year, you would already have your financial year reports done. So they'll be sitting under your custom reports. I've got my end of financial year reports here. So exactly the same. I've set those dates as last financial year. If I'm running these, in July to do my end of financial year, I can run my reports, all of those reports that I've created just in seconds by either exporting them as a PDF, or I can go through each one individually as well and just run those reports. So because I've already got those dates set and the report set, I don't need to go looking for the reports and I don't need to change any dates. If it's your first time using QuickBooks Online and it's your first end of financial year, I'm just going to run through quickly how you would go through and create those reports. So first decide on what reports you want to form part of your end of year checklist. So for me, I'll create a balance sheet, I'll create a profit and loss, accounts payable, accounts receivable. If my clients have inventory, create an inventory report, and then also a trial balance. So just a handy tip as well, with most of the reports, not all of them, you can set your reports to run at a particular date. So I would come up to my accountant toolbox, to my report tools, set my date here. So I'm going to run these for last financial year, set my date range, and whether I'm running those on a cash or accrual basis. And then most of the reports that I run will actually run for that particular date. So I can then go in and create those reports. So you might have them already sitting on your favorites, or you can search really quickly just with the report name up here. So for the balance sheet, I'll go in and run my balance sheet. It's ran for the last financial year, and I'm just going to save that customization. So I'm going to create a new group, and I'm just going to call that whatever you want to call that. I'll change the name for this one. So end of financial year checklist reports, and add that. And if you haven't used the customizations before, you add your new group and you can share them. You can have it just within your firm, or you can share with all the users in QuickBooks Online. I'll just keep mine for the firm only and save that report. So now that report is going to sit on my customization, so my customized reports, under my end of financial year checklist reports. And then I would go through and create all of the other reports. So again, my profit and loss is already ran with those dates. I don't need to set those dates. I'm going to save it to the customization, my end of financial year checklist reports, and save that. So I can then go through and create all of the other reports for my checklist. Then next year when I come to do my end of financial year, they're already there. I can just click on those. That report's going to, so those reports are going to run for your last financial year. So once this clicks over to July of 2018, these will actually run from July 2017 to 18. They'll automatically update for that financial year, for the last financial year in July. So then once you've created your reports, they'll sit, as I said, on your customization, and from there you can go and create other reports that you might need for your checklist. For example, the credit cards that you want to, or bank accounts and credit cards that you want to reconcile, you can either create a list from here, from your balance sheet, transfer that over to your checklist, or on your accounting tab and then on your reconcile screen, you can get a summary of all of your accounts, so all of the accounts that you would have reconciled in the past, statement ending date, and what date they were last reconciled. From here, you could export out this list into Excel, and then that will create or form your part of your list for your checklist as well. So just pop that over there so you can see that comes up fairly quickly, and then you just add that as part of your checklist. So you've got all of those accounts. Let's get out of that. Another thing I do for the reconciliation, because obviously I'm going to go in to all of my clients' files and reconcile all the bank accounts. Obviously, as we know, reconciling your bank accounts and other accounts forms the basis for doing your financial reporting. So you want to make sure all of these are done. So just another thing I would do, another shortcut on my reconciliation screen, is just add that to my toolbar. So just on my toolbar here, so whatever you want to name that. And then it doesn't matter what file I'm in. That'll sit up on my toolbar. Whatever client I'm in, I click on that reconcile and it'll bring me to this reconciliation screen to reconcile my bank accounts. Also from your reports, so once you've created the, back to the balance sheet, you've started creating the reports and you want to start having a look at, your intercompany loans and things like that. I'll start to create some reports for this financial year to date. So working in June now, start working with my client and the accountant for that client on some different reports. And from my balance sheet, I can start to create those reports. So I might have a look, at intercompany loans and also directors loans or directors drawings and start to create those reports. So here I've got a director's loan. I can come in, get a transaction history on that. It's got the last financial year here, but I can really quickly and easily change that to this financial year to date. So next year, again, when I run that report, it'll run on that current financial year, and I'd save that as part of my customization as well. So this is my director's loan, and I'm going to add that to a port group. I think I've got, for accountant review or for client review, and save that. And either get the reports ready to send out. So I might send these out to the accountant here. So I've got for accountant review. I can export those out as a PDF and then email them. Or when the accountant logs in, I can share these reports and the accountant can just quickly and easily come in and access the reports that I want him or her to see and have a look at. And same with the client. I can create another report set, for client review, either send them out to my client. I can schedule them as an email out for my client or create that set for them to review quickly and easily. With your intercompany loans, just another tip for that, if you're creating, running your balance sheet and you've got two companies and they both have QBO files, you can open one. So say I'm working in Chrome now, I'll log into my QBOA and log into the client file. If you use another browser, say Safari or Firefox, open that in another window and on another screen. You can then log into QBOA again and then have the other company open, and you can work in the two companies at the same time, reconciling your intercompany loans that way. Also, as part of your end of year process, you would reconcile your age payables and age summary, age receivables and age payables summary back to your balance sheet, so I can run these reports. Again, I've got my date set, make sure these reconcile back to my balance sheet, and then also from here review any bad debts that I might want to write off. So the process for writing off bad debts in QuickBooks Online, we have in our accountant toolbox our write-off invoices. Now, I don't recommend using this to write off your bad debts. This is really handy if you've got lots of invoices where you've got 1 and 2, maybe up to 50-cent balances that you want to write off. You can come into here and write off them in here, or just write it off to so you could set here, a balance less than 50 cents, which I don't think I have any in this account, but that will give you all of those accounts with those, small balances. And then you could write these off to maybe a rounding account or something like that. But to actually go in and write off bad debts, it is recommended that you create an adjustment note for your client, and then to do that you'll need to create a product or service that you can then write that back to the bad debts. So if you come into your sales register and then to your products and services, we come in and create a new item. So we'll create that as a service item, and I'm just going to call this bad debts. SKU, if you want to have a SKU category, I would just have this to my admin expenses and fees if you're using categories, and then your bad debt written off. And then what you would do here, just for your income account, pick up your bad debt. So it can be an expense here. So just pick up your bad debt expense account, your GST, if you're registered for GST, and then just save and close that. So I've added the items. So with your sales transactions, any sales transaction, you have to actually allocate a product or service to that. So I would then go in and create the adjustment note on the account. Now from my report, I've got Annie Mae, who I'm going to write her off as a bad debt. So I come in here to create my adjustment note. So for Annie Mae, and pick up my bad debt here, and the amount. So she's got $1,712.70. Let's do that the wrong way. That wrong way all around. So now that's going to go back to my bad debt written off. And whatever process, whatever information you want to put into that, you could attach a copy of the invoice or any documentation you have onto here as well. I'm just going to save and close that, and then I'm going to allocate that adjustment note to her account. If you've got in your settings that you automatically allocate credit notes, it's going to automatically do that. For me, I prefer to go in and do it myself, so I have a bit of control over what it's allocating it to. But then I would just pick up Annie Mae here, select those transactions that I'm writing off, and then pick up my adjustment note to credit that back. So the amount received will be 0, picking up all of those invoices and the adjustment note, and I can just save and close that. Then when I run my balance sheet, my profit and loss, that's going to pick up that on my bad debt expense for those invoices. Okay. With your inventory, so if you do have clients using inventory, we have a couple of ways that you can do your stock take. So you can get a report out for your stock take. So your inventory, actually I'll just do it this way, stock take worksheet. I can create a report there, export that out into Excel or print it out. I've got my quantity on hand in here. I can then come up to my 2 ways. So you can either go through, if you've only got a couple that you need to adjust and you just want to do those individually, come back to your sales register and onto your products and services, and then over on your action column you can adjust your quantity here. So pick the individual items that you want to adjust, and then from your action just select the drop down and then adjust your quantity from here. That'll bring up the adjust quantity screen, and then you can go in there and make your adjustment. So your quantity on hand, make your adjustment to your new quantity, and then save that. If you've got a whole stock take and a big list that you want to do all at once, you can then come up to your quick create, and then to other, and then down to your inventory quantity adjustment, and then just work through your list from your stock take sheet, putting in your number. You can change this. So this is inventory shrinkage account is automatically created when you turn on inventory. You could change the name of that in your chart of accounts, or create different accounts for different reasons that you're writing the stock off. But come in and do your stock take through there. Okay. So I'm just going to come back again to my reconciliation screen. Once you've gone through and reconciled your accounts, on your reconciliation screen, and as I said at the start, you can reconcile bank accounts, but you can also pick up any other balance sheet accounts that you might want to reconcile through here as well. So your payroll clearing accounts, PAYG, different accounts that you want to make sure come back to 0, just come in and select those through here and go in and reconcile those. You have a summary tab on the reconciliation page. So clicking on the summary, I showed you before all the different accounts that you want to reconcile. From here, you can also go to history by account, and this will give you the history for all of your accounts. So select your bank account, you want to have a look at the history on, and that will give you the history, so all of the different statements that you've reconciled, and then also any changes. So on our screen at the start, we saw the changes to reconcile. So this will also pop up here in this changes column, and then you can go in and have a look at what changes have been made. Now this is my demo companies, there's lots of changes, it's very ugly. So yeah, you can go in and review those changes and work out whether they need to be fixed or not. So with your end of year, so on your end of year rollover, once you've finished processing your end of year, you can, oh, excuse me, there's no need to do a backup, there's no need to do a rollover, you just keep working in your file as you would normally. So all of the history, for however many years you have your file will be there. And one thing we do suggest though is, or I suggest, is going in and locking your books once you're done. So once you finish your 30 June 2018, go in and lock those books. So you can do that from your gear icon and to your account settings, or you can do it through your dashboard as well. Onto your advanced tab, and then you've got close books. So set the date here, tick the close books, select your date. So I might want to change that. I'm just going to change that to yesterday's date, today's date, oh, that's last year. Let's just change that to today's date, and then set it. So allow changes after viewing a warning, or allow changes after viewing a warning and entering a password. So you can set a password there that if someone does go to change a transaction, they need to actually enter the password to change that transaction. And then you're ready to go. And anything that changes or gets changed after that period will pop up in your dashboard. And then also an exception, there is also a exceptions report. So if I just put in exceptions here, so exceptions to closing date, that will bring up any exceptions there as well from after those books are closed. Now, the last thing I just want to show you is your journal entry. So creating the journal entry, and whether you as the bookkeeper or you as the accountant come in and do the journal entry, when you're logged into QBOA, you can come in to create your journal entry and select that the journal entry is an adjusting entry. So tick this box here, select it as an adjusting entry, go through and create all of your adjustments for that financial year. What that will then do is create two reports for you. So in your reports tab, if I just put in here adjusting, so we have adjusted trial balance and adjusted journal entries. So your adjusted trial balance will give your trial balance with your unadjusted balance, and then any journal entries that you've created in the next column, and then your adjusted balance. And then you have your adjusted journal entries, so that will give you a report on all of the journal entries that you've created as well. And you will notice there that those reports too have just ran in the last financial year because of that report date set. I don't have to go in and change those dates. Okay, Darcy, that is it from me. I think I'm done.
Excellent, thanks, Leanne. I'll just change over. Just changing over to my screen. Oh, and my system's locked up. Hang on, sorry. There we go. Excellent. Thanks very much, Leanne. That was great. We had a couple of questions in there, which we will get back to during the course of the webinar. Just in between these sections, we just wanted to let you know about our bank feeds update. So those of you with Commonwealth Bank of Australia customers now have a better connection that you can make for those clients. You can select banking from the left menu in your client's QBO file and look for the future-proof your connection with direct bank feeds. So direct bank feeds are a lot better connection. Enter your client's details, and then we'll create a client authority form for you, and then you can print that out and have your client sign the form and then send that through to the email address listed on the screen now. Again, we'll make this information available for you after the session so that you've got all the information, but it's going to be a much better bank feed for your clients, for those of you with Commonwealth Bank of Australia clients. Excellent. So without further ado, Lielette will now take us through the payroll section. Lielette has 25 years experience and is the director at All Accounts. And you can follow her on Twitter there. Her Twitter handles are up there. And yeah, so thanks, Lielette.
Hey, thanks, Darcy. I'm just going to also share my screen, so just bear with me, everyone, while we do this. And I knew this would happen.
Here we go.
Darcy, have you made me an organizer?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
There you go.
Wonderful. Okay, and I'll just move my chat box over here. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Leanne. That was great. It's always good to get a refresher as well. So I definitely picked up some tips as well. But look, I'm here to take you guys all through payroll, and we all know there've been some major changes with payroll. And I'll just preface it with that I'm not here to talk about single touch payroll today because there'll be separate sessions for those. But we are here to really just, look at all the steps that are involved in terms of, finalising year end and getting all your payment summaries out there and making sure that not just all your other balance sheet accounts reconciled, but your payroll accounts. So the first thing I want to take you through is the configuration of data. Everything we do is online and it's direct. So we need to make sure that the integrity of all the employee data is correct. Now there's a couple of ways we can do that. So I'm logged in at the moment into the employee section. Okay, I do have two tabs open up here, and I do suggest when you are working on payroll, because the standard reports like your P&L and balance sheets are in your reports tab, but all your other payroll reports are actually in your employee tab section here, as you would all know. So I've got the reports tab open here, but I've also got my balance sheet ready to go, because everything I'm doing, the whole purpose of reconciling for year-end in payroll is to reconcile back to your balance sheet as well as reconciling to things that have been lodged with the ATO. So the quickest way to check your employee data, if you've got a small employee file, you could just run a report under the employee details report tab. Okay, so, and what you can do here, you can pick the columns you wish to display. So the things that are critical for payment summaries are things like, the tax file number. So I want to make sure that I've got my TFN up here, or tax file number. Here we go, tax file number. I also would want the correct email account, so I want email in here. And you can pick and choose if you want addresses, if you don't have email accounts and you need to post payment summaries. But for me, these are the critical things. So I would just run that to screen, and I can just drill down here. I've got my employees all here, and I can clearly see here I've got some obscure tax file numbers for whatever reason. Now this is just a demo file, so I don't have real tax file numbers. But clearly, if you have these situations and there is no reason why you don't have the correct tax file number, that's when you will follow up as well. Now, if it's a large employee database, I would probably suggest in this instance, and anyone who knows me knows I'm not a fan of using Excel out of an accounting program, particularly with the QuickBooks Payroll module, because everything you need to do is pretty much within the software. But if you do have a large one, what I would probably do is export your employee data file. Okay, and the data type you want is you want everyone. You want to include terminated employees as well. Reason is that they still will need a payment summary. So if you don't have that information, you can follow through, probably some of the payroll records. So I've downloaded that to Excel, and I will just close that. Yes, I want to review later. And I can just go through here again. So imagine if you do have 100 employees or 50 employees, this by far would be the quickest way to review your employees. And you can put some filters in here and you can say, right, just show me the blanks, show me the 00s, and away you go. And what you would do is if you do have a large employee file, you could make those changes directly here in the spreadsheet. And then what you would do is you would come back in here and you would import your sheet once you've made those changes. So I've had situations where I've inherited a file and there have been, even missing superannuation details and tax file numbers, and it is much quicker to do it this way. So I would be updating a standard format file, and I would just select the file and I would import that in, and it would just import all the data back in. The way it imports is based on the employee unique ID. So I'll just show you what I mean here. This ID number never changes. When you put a new employee in the system, that stays with them all the way through. So you can always re-import data based on that unique ID number. It will not overwrite the existing data. It'll only overwrite updates. So that's the step one you need to do. Make sure all your information is correct for your staff. And particularly, I guess, get into the habit of doing that for single touch payroll, because all data will need to be updated when it is mandatory for everyone from next year. So the next thing we want to do is jump into ATO supplier settings. Okay, if you haven't turned this on and if you haven't updated your ATO supplier settings, you will not be able to lodge your payment summaries directly with the ATO. Okay, so just make sure you've got your ABN, or what you can do is also just copy from your standard business settings down here. So whatever you have in your QuickBooks settings, it will copy those through. So if you haven't enabled your electronic lodgement, that will be red and it will say disabled. In this case, because it is a demo file, I have enabled it. And what you're doing is you are allowing KeyPay, who are the integrated payroll module within QuickBooks, to authorize them to lodge on your behalf when you do payment summaries and also employee tax declarations. So I did say I wasn't going to talk about single touch payroll, but what I will tell you quickly is when that is live, you will see a little section here, enable single touch payroll as well. Okay, so that's not live yet, but just a little bit of a teaser there for you. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is, quite importantly, is look at our pay categories. Okay, now the standard pay categories like your ordinary earnings and casual earnings, all those things should automatically be defaulted to the standard payment summary classification. The only thing I want to bring to your attention today, though, is the allowances. Now, again, with the introduction of single touch payroll, there have been some changes to the software, which means that if you do have allowances in the system, what you will find is that they have been defaulted to other. Okay, so if I just click on this one, motor vehicle, I have already changed this, but what you may find, and I suggest you go through all your allowances, if you find that they are sitting as other, you need to go in and you need to break them down. I also suggest you log on to the ATO website and look at the withholding payments allowances. Now, I believe the link to that will be on the blog as well that Darcy will make available. But like I said, under STP, allowances are now to be separately itemised, and so any existing allowance-based categories will need to be reviewed because they will be defaulted to other. Okay, so just make sure you do a bit of homework on that section before you start running your payment summaries, because you really don't want your allowances sitting in allowances if they should be sitting in ordinary earnings, and vice versa as well. So that's all there is to really, I guess, check in the data. So check your employee data, check your ATO settings, and review your pay categories, particularly around allowances. So the next thing we need to do is I'll just close out of this, guys, is we need to have a look to make sure we have no unfinalised pay runs, because any unfinalised pay runs won't be attached to the payment summaries because it is dictated on the date it's paid. Now in this situation, I do have an open pay run in here, so I can click on that. Now I'm not going to finalise it only because I've got everything working without this, like all my reconciliations that I'm going to show you shortly, without this payroll in here. But if it was something that you needed to finalise, you would just go in here and press finalise pay run as you would normally do. But just definitely make sure before you jump into payment summaries. Having said that though, the system will prompt you that you have an unfinalised pay run along the way as well. So no reason why you would have one sitting there if it's not meant to be. So either delete it or finalise it. Okay, so that's finalised pay runs. So now we get on to the good stuff, which is the reconciliations. Now I know Leanne took you through a high level of reconciliations. In this scenario, what I'm going to do is just give you an idea of the accounts that need to be reconciled and what reports you need to use to substantiate them. I'm not going to take you through the bookkeeping process and how to reconcile. We're assuming that everyone knows how to reconcile. So the first thing, which I have left off the blog though, I don't know how I did that, is payroll clearing. Okay, that's your first thing you need to reconcile. And as a habit, you should really be doing that each month or after each pay run anyway. So if I look at my balance sheet, the main things I want to reconcile, you'll do your BAS liability through your normal end of year process, but for payroll, we're going to look at PAYG, payroll clearing, and superannuation on the balance sheet. So because I'm such a diligent bookkeeper, I have nothing in my payroll clearing. But if you did, that was a joke, guys. I'm so not diligent. So what you would do would be to do a normal reconciliation. And that's what I like to do. I like to reconcile all these accounts through the normal reconciliation channel. Just to take you through that really quickly, I would go reconcile account, let's do it. And I would just go in here, payroll clearing, put my balance. I want it to be 0, 30th of the 6th. And I would go start reconciling. So you would just go through this and you would just do this month by month. So pretty much I would just tick everything here. Yes, select all. And I know that everything balances back to 0. So what this is giving you, it's also giving you a reconciliation that you can provide to the accountant. And if it did have a balance in here, you could substantiate it by clearly having some of these amounts unticked. If so you had done the payroll, say on the 29th of June, but it didn't physically leave your bank until, say, the 1st of July. That would be a balance in the payroll clearing. And as long as you can substantiate that with a reconciliation like that, you are good to go. So get in the habit of doing all your payroll type reconciliations through here. It is definitely one of the strong features of QuickBooks that I personally love about. So the next rec we would do is I'll just go back to my reports, is superannuation payable. So again, like I said, I will have my balance sheet sitting up here for this financial year, run the report, and I need to substantiate the amount of $10,989 sitting on my balance sheet as at 30th of June. So back into payroll, under reports, I am going to look at my super contributions. Now, if you know your habits of your clients, and if you are paying their super monthly, quarterly, you would know that, you just need to substantiate the last quarter's accruals. So I know, because this is a demo file and we need to be really quick, I know that this particular client or in this demo file has the last quarter outstanding. So I'm going to look at this quarter to date. Okay, and I'm going to run that report. So as you can see here, my superannuation payable is $10,989, which matches perfectly to my balance sheet. Now I know in a not so perfect world, that doesn't always happen. So what are some of the things that you need to look for then is, you know, if anyone has coded directly to the superannuation payable account, you know, very easily, just click on your payable, change your date range if it's not coming up with the full year, and just run your eyes over it and just see if you can see anything that's really strange, that's not a payment, that could be something else that someone's coded to or you've accidentally coded. Or what I suggest, if you're not balancing, go through the reconciliation process like I just showed you, and just do month by month to see where you've gone out. But once you get into those really good habits of reconciling the way I showed you, you'll find that all your liability accounts should balance, and if they don't, you'll be able to easily pick those anomalies up. So that's superannuation payable. We also will look at the wages expense and superannuation expense, because we all know that we get asked to justify the P&L to the payment summaries. So that's something else we need to do. So let's just jump over back here into reports. So let's just bring up a profit and loss again for the financial year. This financial year, run report. And if you are working on, I don't like to save anything until I've done all my recs, because obviously there will be some changes as I go along as well. So superannuation, we need to substantiate that for the year, 6527, and the total wages and salaries for the year is 71,000. So what we do is we want to look at a detailed activity report under payroll. So I'm jumping over to the payroll tab. I'll close this superannuation report because I'm happy with that. Over into payroll. Under the payroll reports, I'm looking for the detailed activity report. And I want to run that for the whole financial year. So financial year and run report. Again, I don't need to export to Excel. I can look at this over 2 screens. So my gross earnings is 71,037 and my super is 6527. Now, normally I would have this on one screen and the other screen, but because I'm doing a demo, I do have to jump over, but I'll remember 71. So I'm looking for 71, and I know that my report, my payroll report, balances to my P&L. So what that means is that no one's coded something directly to the P&L. We all know we have clients that do that, or if inherited files, people have done that as well. You know, you see directors' loans going through there. So if you do see that, that's when you're going to need to do a bit of a reconciliation. And the superannuation was 6527 as well. So you notice I'm not picking up, so I'm only interested in the gross earnings, even though we have a pre-tax deduction here. The cost to the business is 71. So that's what we want to see, and the superannuation is 6527. So that's a nice little tick there as well. So we can work our way through now to PAYG withholding. Now PAYG, I tend to do 2 recs. One is reconciling back to the ATO what I've lodged for the year, because we all know when we do payment summaries and it doesn't tie back to what's been lodged on the BASs, you will get a please explain from the ATO. So you want to avoid that at all costs. So that's really one of the most important recs to do, is you want to reconcile your W1 and W2 that you have lodged already to the ATO before you lodge your June BAS. So you want to pick up any adjustments on the June, whether you have, you know, where it's been under or over. So have your, set up a spreadsheet in this case, list all your W1s and W2s that you have lodged with the ATO, and then start running, and then get the sum of those, and then go back into your reports under payroll. Let's just go back here, reports. And we're interested in a PAYG withholding report. Okay, so this is the report you would use each quarter or month when you're lodging your BAS anyway. So in this scenario, I'm interested to see what I've lodged for the whole year. Okay, so again, I would just go for the financial year. So you would want to make sure that this figure at the very end, PAYG 25,594, is the same figure that you have lodged with the ATO. Okay, so just make that's the first rec you need to do. The second one is reconciling to the balance sheet. Okay, so let's just go back here, because we want to substantiate what our outstanding balance is for, where am I going here? This financial year. What we owe the ATO as at 30th of June. So in this case, we owe them 2842, and I am interested in what my payroll records tell me. Now, I know this particular client pays their PAYG monthly. They have a monthly IAS, so I know it's only June that's going to be outstanding. So I'm going to go this month. And if I run that report, I have 2842, and I believe that figure was on my balance sheet as well. Sorry guys, I thought I turned off my notifications. That's just Dropbox. Okay, so what I have here is 2842. Okay, and I've got 2842. So that's another tick. I'm happy. And look, I really know in not so perfect world, they're not going to balance all the time. But you know, I've taught you how to do a reconciliation, and you have the skills now to reconcile that within the system without having to do it outside of the system. So, okay, so what we need to do now is we are good to go for payment summaries because everything balances. I'm happy. So let's jump right into payment summaries. Now, payment summaries are found in your reports. They're found under the ATO reporting menu, and we can go payment summaries. So what we need to do is we also, before I actually, so I'm just going to go back a step. Sorry, guys. I do want to also, actually, no. I want to run the payment summary report. Then I also want to run a payroll activity report, because sometimes there are some changes. Things don't necessarily always appear on payment summaries as they do in your payroll activity report. So we're going to show the payment summaries. Now, because this is a demo file, I've only actually got one current year open, but if you had last year, you would just pick this financial year. Okay, so, and if I had multiple entities, I'd also be able to choose which entity I wanted to run. So as you can see here, I've got my payment summaries, I've got my total gross. I know from memory that was on my P&L, so I'm happy with that. I also know that was the total figure that was reported on the detailed activity report as well. But what you need to do, yes, is compare this report to, let's just go back here under employees, to your detailed activity report. So where is it? Detailed activity report. Okay, and again, you would run that for the financial year, run report. And you would make sure that, so you would, for the accountant or for the client, you would make sure that you have a copy of this report attached to this report as well, what you've lodged. Okay, so we've cross-checked our figures, which is really imperative to do. Okay, so like I said, have two tabs open. You would only need to export to Excel and if the figures are out. And in that case, unfortunately, and I've had to do this many times, where I've had to run my eyes over each employee and do a cross-check to see where the figures are out. Okay, so keep that in mind if you need to do that. And you can do that by exporting here to Excel. So, reportable fringe benefits. This is the time where you would also update any figures that the accountants have given you, or if you are accountants, this is where you would do it as well, okay? So it's quite easy. What you need to do is you need to go into your action button and oh, sorry, these are published. So I'm just quickly going to unpublish these, unpublish all my, I'm going to take you through this as well. So I can't make a change whilst these records were published. So I need to edit, and here I can put in a reportable superannuation amount of $750. Okay, and I can save that. It's not amended. It only becomes amended after I've actually lodged with the ATO. Okay, in this case I haven't lodged yet, so it's still a new file. So the other thing you would keep an eye out for here is your reportable superannuation amount as well. Okay, so that will appear here as well. So just make sure that if you know that you've got clients who have staff who are salary sacrificing super and you don't see it here, go back and look at your mapping to make sure that it has been ticked to appear as a reportable superannuation category in the payment summary. Okay, so I'm happy with all this. I'm now ready to publish these, okay? Feel free to do a download, payment summary PDF as well. That will just download them all into one document for you. But in this case, I am happy and I can publish all 6 payment summaries. And I don't tick that box because it's just like I said, it's just an initial file that I'm about to send to the ATO. Once I've done that, I can then lodge directly with the ATO. Clearly, I can't do that here because I don't have correct details. It is a demo file. But all you would do is go lodge now. And that's really how you lodge to the ATO. If you don't, let's just say if you don't want to lodge directly here, you can always still spit out an empdupe file. And if you use something like GovReports, you can upload that as well manually through GovReports. Your employment termination payment summaries, if you have any, will be here as well. Okay, so back here. So like I showed you before, if you've made a mistake and you've realized, oh no, I've published, I need to change something, I need to include another pay run, you can do that. All you need to do is go in here and unpublish those payment summaries. Or if you don't want to unpublish them all and you just need to change, say Barbara's here, you know, her RFBA is wrong, you can unpublish her as an individual. And then you can edit as well. So we can just delete that and save it. So that's how you can unpublish individually, and then now we can publish. So you can also then send the 6 notifications, send the 6, what's it doing here? Yep, so this will also email it out directly to the employees, or you don't have, if you don't want to email it out, they can access it through their employee portal. And if they're using the mobile app, which is called WorkZone, they can access it through there as well. So if you need to do an amendment after it's been lodged with the ATO, like I showed you before, you would come back in here, you would need to unpublish, okay, and then you would need to put in here that it is an amendment when you do relodge with the ATO. Okay, so this, we'll go back in here, publish. You would need to tick it here that it is an amendment. Okay, well, I think in my opinion, that's really all I do for payroll. And now a lot of this stuff that we're talking about now will be superseded, I guess, you know, in the next financial year with single touch payroll. So so keep an eye out for those great webinars. But Darcy, I think I've covered everything I needed to in good time as well. So I haven't looked at the question panel.
Yeah, no, that's good. We've got some great questions coming through. Thanks, everybody. So actually, Lielette, while you're on, so we have a question from Fiona. Why in QBO, when in payroll, that it always goes back to the main screen? It's a bit annoying. Is there a way to stop that?
Fiona, I wish I had an answer to that. I think we need to ask our good friends at QPay. I'm with you. I find that's a horrible, yeah,
I agree.
So good question. And Darcy, can we please take that to Richard or someone?
Yeah, yep, definitely. So what would you suggest for reconciliations? Again, this one's around payroll. So what would you suggest for reconciliations where the client only uses QBO for payroll and therefore doesn't have any bank feeds connected?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a few of those clients. You don't need the bank feed. So pretty much what you're doing then is the journal. You need to make sure that your journal is synced to your accounting system. And so you would still need a payroll clearing account. So because that's just the way the payroll system works. So I work with, I do a lot of payroll implementations, and part of what we do is to actually make sure that those journals are mapped correctly, that it picks up the payroll clearing. So you don't need bank feeds. You will be doing your reconciliations in your actual accounting system. So it should work the same because your bank feeds will be in your other accounting file, or if you're not using bank feeds and it's desktop, you would still have a payment going out, and you would still need to, I would still use payroll clearing. I wouldn't be using anything else for clearing, I guess, the net payment of wages. I would still use payroll clearing.
Thank you. Leanne, we have one from Kim. In regard to year-end preparation, can the closed books date be converted backwards or cleared altogether if the need arises?
Yes, it can. So there's in your account company settings on your advanced tab where you go in to close the books, there's a little tick box. So you just tick and untick the tick box as you want to have them closed and unclosed. Is that the right word? Yeah. So yeah, definitely you can turn that on and off as you like.
Great. Lielette, one from Belinda here. Do you receive confirmation of receipt from the ATO for lodgement of PAYG summaries? And if so, where?
Do you receive confirmation? No, you actually do see, you do, it's not a confirmation, but when you log in, you can actually see that it has been received. And I can't show you here. Can we do a screenshot of, I can probably go to an old file of last year's and have a look, but I can't show it clearly here on screen because of confidentiality purposes.
That's okay. We can follow up later.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Yeah, I don't think you get an email from memory. You know, because we do this once a year, we have to go back and look at, refresh our memory. It is a good question. I should have been prepared for that one.
It's okay. Joanne is asking, to lodge the EMP dupe file, do you need to have all employees published? I.e., if an owner doesn't get their payment summary till later, but you want the employees to get theirs?
No, you don't. That I know. You don't. So, which is great because you can go in and do individual ones, which I've done several times.
Excellent. Just going through. Thanks for the questions coming through, everyone, and thanks for all the congratulations on having a great webinar as well. Thank you. One from Jenny. When I take up payments for pays with gross, tax, and net to match the bank for that client.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
When I'm just going. What time did that question
come
through?
No, sorry. Jenny's just said that's all good. She's covered off on that. Okay. Robert's asking, salary sacrifice creates an issue in SGC and SS is not considered OTE, and technically in the past 9.5% was applicable to SS, where the 9.5% was applied to the SS and the 9.5% is additional to the risk.
Who's that from?
That's from Robert.
Oh, here it is, Robert Duckett. Yes, okay. So it creates an issue re-SGC as so it is not considered ordinary time earnings, and technically in the past the money is.
That's okay, Robert. We'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
Melinda has a question. This is not quite related, but is there a way to set up QuickBooks BAS to have monthly PAYG installments and BAS quarterly?
I believe with the new BAS module, yes.
Yeah, the new BAS Center,
Yeah.
if it's a new file, it should already be in there. If it's an older one, they're just rolling it out at the moment, so
That's right.
it shouldn't be long and it'll be upgraded to
Yeah,
handle
or
that
you can
properly.
contact support, and I think they may even, is that right, Leanne? Do you think they may upgrade it if it's a pain point?
They could possibly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, look, that takes us to time. So I'll just change over presenters. So we've had a lot of great questions coming through. Thanks for that. We will get to your questions. Just to note, we will have this recording sent out to you in an email afterwards, along with a link to our Get Ahead of the Game site. So the Get Ahead of the Game site is a place where not only end of financial year and end of payroll year stuff will be hosted, but a whole range of resources, the checklists from today, and a bunch of other articles that are relevant to this thing that happens to us once a year that we want to make sure that we've ticked all the boxes. So there's a link there, but again, you'll get an email after the session with links going out to that, and also a link to this recording. So again, I would like to thank our presenters, Leanne and Lielette. Thank you very much, guys. Great session. I know that there was feedback that it was very jam-packed, but again, you will get the recording, and there is a lot of information on the Get Ahead of the Game website, so that you can consume that at your leisure, and also those helpful checklists that will give you a step-by-step guide on how to work through the stuff that we were talking about today. So with that, and again, thanks for all the well wishes coming through as well. Great webinar feedback coming through, so really appreciate that. And yeah, have a really good day and a really good end of the financial year. Thanks all.
Okay. Thank you. Bye everyone.
Darcy.